Welcome back, everybody. I just wanted to create a video about reactive abuse and talk about what happens whenever we become the victim of narcissistic abuse, especially if you're a married person. And I just wanted to share my testimony with you and let you know my personal experience with it and see if you relate to that. So if you would, please do follow me here on TikTok or YouTube. I post my videos on both platforms, and give me a like on this video if you would. Please repost it for me, bookmark it, whatever you need to do. But yeah, share the message here. I'd love to know how you have been dealing with your abuse, and let's just not dumb it down any. It's abuse, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, I'd love to know how you've dealt with that, and if there's any struggles that you're having right now, please let me know. I'm always available. You can always send me a message. I'd be glad to pray for you, talk to you in any aspects of what I've experienced, what I've learned so far along my journey in healing from getting away from the narcissist in my life. So let's just jump right in. I am going to pull up a website here, and that way we can just go through it together. So we have, this is Charlie Health is the website here, charliehealth.com. What is reactive abuse? It says it's a 6-minute read, so shouldn't take us too long. Reactive abuse is a control tactic used by perpetrators of abuse to shift blame away from themselves and onto their partners. Learn how to identify reactive abuse in a relationship and gain skills to end this toxic cycle. And that's the goal of this right here in this video, is I want you to understand what reactive abuse is, and that way you can identify it if you are indeed the victim of it. You can seek help. So reactive abuse is when the perpetrator of abuse deliberately, reactive abuse is when a perpetrator of abuse deliberately triggers their partner into reacting to their abusive behavior aggressively. Abusive partners may use this manipulative tactic to shift blame away from themselves by claiming that the abuse is two-sided. Reactive abuse often occurs in romantic partnerships, but like all forms of abuse, can also happen within other relationships. Experts largely agree that a more appropriate term for this behavior is self-defense, which is not abuse. When a person is continuously exposed to emotional or physical abuse, they may look for ways to defend themselves against their abuser. This defense behavior typically occurs when a person has been dealing with prolonged abuse and finally reaches their breaking point. Examples of defensive behaviors include yelling, verbal attacks, pushing, punching, kicking, and hair pulling. Partner violence is never healthy, but using these strategies as a form of self-defense is not abuse. And let's look at that right there. Partner violence is never healthy, but using these strategies as a form of self-defense is not abuse. So if you have ever had to defend yourself from somebody attacking you, whether it is emotionally, verbally, physically, whatever the case, if they are attacking you in any way, that is abuse. They are the instigator. And if you have to resort to defending yourself from constant attack, that is not abuse. It says so right here, okay? Experts largely agree that this is self-defense. And right here, you are not alone. And I promise you, I've been there, I've done that, and I'm right now the victim of a smear campaign. She tells everybody that she's the victim and I was the abuser. I have 4 years of evidence to prove otherwise, so unfortunately for her, she truly believes her own lies and she lives in a fantasy world. Is there a difference between self-defense and mutual abuse? You may have heard the term mutually abusive to describe a rocky or tumultuous relationship, but experts largely agree that the concept of mutual abuse does not exist. And if you want, there's probably, it looks like here's a link and you can go read that as well. Two people in a relationship can both exhibit unhealthy behaviors, but abuse stems from one person's desire for power and control over another person. In an abusive relationship, the abuser will purposely behave in a cruel, violent, demeaning, or invasive manner towards their partner to create an imbalance of power. The victim may eventually react to that abuse, but that response is not, or is considered to be self-defense. It's not abuse. According to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, signs that your behavior is in self-defense include You acted when you felt that your safety was at risk. You acted as a way to try and reestablish your independence. You would like to change your behavior because you know it's not who you are or healthy for a relationship. So if if this is you, you know that you're in self-defense mode, okay? If you want to change because this isn't who you are, you're not a narcissist. Narcissists can't accept that they are damaged people. Let me bring myself back up here. So a narcissist cannot accept the fact that they are a damaged person, that they are at fault, that they are abusing you. They were abused as a child typically, and that abuse, they had to retreat from it. The only place that they could retreat from that abuse was inside their mind. And so I've seen a lot of other people talking and videos and things like that. And a lot of people, essentially are under the assumption, and I would probably have to agree, that a narcissist is probably in the emotional age of a 7 and a 10-year-old child. And if you know a narcissist, you know I'm right. They literally have the emotional intelligence of a 7 to 10-year-old child. I'm a parent. I have a 12-year-old. He's almost 13 this year. And then I have a 4-year-old. And my 12-year-old is capable of more logic and reasoning and emotional depth than my wife of 25 years of age. She's 25 years. We haven't been married 25 years. We've been married 5 years. But yeah, in 5 years, she's proved to me that my now 12-year-old son has more of an emotional intelligence than she does, and has a more firm grip on reality than she does. Like, she was abused horribly as a child, and she even defends her own mother. That's the problem, that she can't even see in herself, is like she's defending the person who abused her to the point that she's now damaged for life. Because narcissism isn't really something you can just like make go away. You can take medications, you can go to therapy, but ultimately it's like hardwired in your brain. That's who you are because of what happened to you as a child. And being able to convince somebody that they have an issue whenever they're a narcissist, from my experience, I'm married to somebody who, before I met her, claimed she was a Christian. She has a Bible verse tattooed on her collarbone up here and everything. And she believes that I am the villain. She believes that I'm the horrible person that she has to believe I am in order to not look at herself with such disgust and shame that it would probably destroy her. She cannot face her own guilt. There is a grandiose self-importance in this false, image, the facade that the narcissist creates, because otherwise they'd see their own shame and they'd see that guilt, and it's not something that they have the capacity to deal with. And so they live in a fantasy world. They are 100% delusional. Like I said, you can show them fact after fact or just proof of everything. There is no logic that you can show them that will prove them wrong. They won't accept responsibility. They will continuously they'll die on any hill. It doesn't matter what it is, how wrong they are. They will die on that hill. I promise you. I've been there. I've done that. After being separated with my wife for more than a year, she's tried to hoover me back up 3 times. And every single time she truly believes that I'm the problem why it doesn't work out. And I mean, this last time in January, she approached me, and then turns out she had a boyfriend the whole time. She lied to me about not having a boyfriend. She lied about not even, seeing anybody that time we were separated. And then whenever we started spending time together as a family, like every day for like 3 weeks, she was still talking to this guy that she'd been having an affair with, essentially. I mean, we're separated. You're my wife. That's an affair. It doesn't matter if we're together or not. If you look at 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 39, it says that your husband is your husband for your life as long as he lives. You cannot divorce your husband and remarry somebody else. To do so, you commit adultery, and you cause your new spouse to commit adultery as well. Marriage is for life. When we get married, we become one flesh with that partner, and it is a lifelong commitment. You cannot become like one flesh. Like it just once you become one flesh, you cannot unbecome one flesh. And so that's why the Bible speaks really clearly on marriage and how sacred and how it is a lifelong commitment to somebody. And sex is the same way. Do not have sex with somebody unless you want to be married to them in a lifelong commitment, and don't do it until you've already made that commitment to them. Because then you'll understand marriage is about hard work. It's about dedication. It's not about fun. It's not about sex. If you do like I did and have premarital sex with your wife, it's just going to lead to destruction, because our relationship was built on sex. And eventually sex is not enough between a couple. You could have a great sex life, but eventually it will not be enough to overcome all of the other obstacles that are between you and your spouse, because you don't have Jesus at the foundation of your relationship there. So let's just get back over here real quick to the website real quick. So what does reactive abuse look like? There's a few different things. Reactive abuse is a manipulation tactic that follows a specific behavior pattern. It can be difficult to recognize when you or a loved one are in an abusive relationship, but there's three stages that demonstrate what an abusive relationship with reactive abuse can look like. So the first being antagonism. At first, the abuser will find ways to provoke or antagonize their partner, or push their buttons, as they say. These habits may not seem harmful initially, but they are eventually going to cause that person to hit their breaking point. And so it's testing the waters. It's finding where they can put pressure on you to make you react out of character. So here are a few examples of behaviors that can trigger reactive abuse. Asking you a personal or triggering question, especially around other people. If they try and shame you or make you feel uncomfortable in front of other people, that is not right. Posting or commenting on your social media in an intentionally triggering way. If you look at a couple videos that I made a couple days ago, please go back on my TikTok. There's one that says the police forcibly take child. My wife responded to that video. That's right there, proof. Posting or commenting on your social media in an intentionally triggering way. And she's done it to a different video of mine, just I think from yesterday. So yeah, they will post on everything and try and make you look like the aggressor, like you're the bad guy, trying to provoke you, right? And just remember, that's all it is. They are trying to provoke you to act out of character. Do not fall for that. Okay? So another tactic here for antagonism being intentionally violating your emotional or physical boundaries. If you've said, please respect these boundaries, whether that's emotionally, physically, whatever, and they choose to violate those boundaries that you have established, then that is abuse. Okay, that's antagonizing you to act out of character, to reach a breaking point. And lastly, baiting you into arguments and then belittling you whenever you react. And I think that many of you who are or have been in a narcissistic relationship, you would agree that these are all, all tactics that you've experienced personally, or most or some of them at least, For me personally, every single one. I've experienced every single one of those. So second, proof. Oh, let's get rid of that. Don't need that. After enduring prolonged physical or emotional abuse, it's understandable that a person would reach their breaking point and lash out in self-defense. It took me almost 3 years before things got physical. So, and that was after she'd actually, as I was walking away from the argument, she threw a metal cup. Let me go back over here so you can kind of get a scale. So, those those Yeti 30-ounce tumblers, or like if you have a Walmart near you, they've got the Ozark Trail. I think it was an Ozark Trail. So it's like a 30-ounce Ozark Trail stainless steel tumbler. And as I was walking away from her, she threw it at me, and it hit me in the back of my hand over here on my pinky. I don't know if you can see probably, but it's really kind of elevated right here still to this day. And it's still messed up, because she broke my hand. And, at that point, I was never comfortable to turn my back on her in a argument. She proved to me that she was violent, that I couldn't trust her, and that she would hurt me if I let her. And so things changed. That was the turning point, the tipping point for the dynamic in our relationship, and it quickly spiraled downhill. I mean, very quickly, and we'll get into that. So when we look at the proof, after enduring prolonged physical or emotional abuse, it's understandable how that person would reach their breaking point and reach out in self-defense. However, the abusive partner will use this to their advantage and consider it proof of two-sided abuse. Abuse is about power and control. So that the abuser, who ultimately holds the most power, will use their partner's reaction as a way to control the narrative. Right? It's not about just hurting you. It's about making sure that they are establishing control. Lastly, turning the tables. The perpetrator of abuse may use certain phrases to manipulate or gaslight their partner into thinking it's their fault or that both partners are responsible for the abuse when quite obviously it's really just the one. So here are other examples. Your words, actions that made me act that way. To justify, right? They have a justification for everything. You know what I'm talking about. You yelled, hit, shoved, pushed me too. You started this. You're the one trying to gaslight me. They mirror what you're saying. They turn it around on you. When you try and say, hey, this is what you're doing, please stop. Oh no, that's what you're doing. They flip the tables. So turn the tables on us, right? Is there a link between reactive abuse and narcissism? So, reactive abuse can happen in relationships with various kinds of abuse, including narcissistic abuse, a type of emotional abuse employed by people with narcissistic personality disorder, or NPD. So, if you ever see NPD, that stands for narcissistic personality disorder. If you see BPD, that is bipolar personality disorder, right? And so they use this to exert control, exploit, and undermine others. Many people display narcissistic traits every once in a while. Obviously, we're all narcissistic to a point, but people with NPD have an excessive sense of self-importance. They're the ones who just like, oh, I got to have it my way. I'm entitled to everything. I don't care about your feelings. My feelings matter more. They have a complete lack of empathy. You're right, a complete lack of empathy. And they do not know how to put themselves in your shoes. It's not possible for them. They have a constant need for admiration. They just want your love, but they're never willing to give back in return. In relationships, they may exploit others for their own gain, whether that's emotionally manipulate them, engage in gaslighting, belittlement, and various forms of control, all examples of narcissistic abuse. And so narcissistic abuse tactics often intentionally push on a victim's boundaries to provoke a reaction. They're doing this to get a reaction out of you so that when you react, they have the fuel in their own mind. Hey, this is the bad guy, they're the abuser, they're the villain. And so they truly believe what they are seeing because they've gotten that reaction out of us, right? When a victim of narcissistic abuse reaches their breaking point, they may react with anger, frustration, or even aggression. The narcissist then seizes that opportunity to further manipulate the situation, portraying themselves as the victim and justifying their own abusive behavior. And they do this every time. They may use the reactive abuse as evidence to discredit the victim's claims, deflect responsibility, or perpetuate the cycle. And in my experience, this is it, all three of them. My wife uses the reactive abuse to discredit me, to deflect responsibility on herself, and then perpetuate this cycle of abuse when she tries to hoover me back in and act like I'm the bad guy and I should be apologizing to her. And if I would just be nicer to her, that it would just be perfect between us and we could be happy. She truly believes that. I swear to you, she truly believes that. Narcissistic abuse is harmful, and it can indicate a toxic relationship dynamic. Seeking professional help, such as therapy or support groups, can be crucial and prudent for victims to break free from this abusive cycle and regain their emotional well-being. And I'm telling you, prudent, because for me, I was at the tipping point of literally, I was about to lose my mind. I literally couldn't take it anymore, and when you are doubting your own self, that's not a good place to be. And I sought professional help. I'm a veteran, disabled vet, and from my military service in the Navy, and I sought the VA and was like, hey, I need help. It took them 2 months after I called and said I'd like to schedule an appointment with mental health. They didn't call me or anything, and so I called them back and I said, it's been 2 months. I called to get scheduled, and I still haven't heard anything. I was just checking on the progress of that. And they say, oh, we're so sorry. We don't have your request here anymore. We can get you in May. And this was like the beginning of March, basically. So I was like, I called you 2 months ago. That's not acceptable. And so they put me on hold for a few minutes, and they talked to one of the providers, and she got me in at the end of the month. And so I had to wait about 4 weeks still. It was almost 4 weeks before I was able to speak with her. But that day that I spoke with her, she gave me medication, and then she gave me enough for about 2 weeks until they could mail me a prescription in the mail. And I feel much better now. Like I'm taking medications for my anxiety and depression and stuff like that. And also like I have ADHD, come to find out. So a lot of the rumination and stuff, ADHD does not help with that. But through medication, through therapy, I'm healing now. And It was very crucial for me because my life is pretty much like a 180, and it's not like it's an overnight thing, but we're talking, it's been, probably 2 or 3 months now that I've just been, wow, much different, much different. And so I'm thankful for God to pull me out of that darkness, and I'm thankful for God for leading me to be strong and seek out professional help. It's not easy, especially as men, we're supposed to be tough and strong. We don't talk about our problems, and I promise you that's just not the way it should be. As I spoke in my previous video, out of all the people who unalived themselves in 2021, 80% were men in the United States alone. So there's a very real problem with mental health, and we need to speak up. And I hope that I'm encouraging you, if you're a man listening to me, I hope this encourages you to seek professional help, to get therapy, to go on medication if you need to separate yourself from that abuse. Don't let them keep abusing you. Put a protective order against them. You can go down and file an ex parte, EXPARTE, and it's a no contact order where they cannot contact you. If they do, they'll go to jail essentially if they keep doing it. My wife is going to jail. She's facing jail time, and she continues to violate it even though she's already facing jail time. I reported her Monday. I reported her today, and she just doesn't care because she hasn't gone to jail yet, but maybe once they toss her in jail, she'll probably leave me alone. There are ways to get away from it. There are ways to get help. And I can tell you right now, the most important thing for you if you're in an abusive relationship is to, 1, separate from that, and 2, Jesus. Devote your heart, your soul, every bit of your energy to Jesus. And I promise you, you won't have time to think about all that negative stuff. And you'll realize that your joy and your hope and your peace come from Jesus and Jesus alone. Okay? So how do we deal with it, right? Reactive abuse is definitely insidious. I never in a million years imagined that a woman alone, I knew men could be bad, but I didn't think women could be that evil. I really didn't. And I didn't want to believe it could be true. But I've witnessed it firsthand, and I continue to experience it. Please go watch my other videos where I posted some of the most vile, disgusting things that my wife has said to her husband. And this is a wife who claims to be a follower of Christ. So, sometimes only making itself known when a person hits their breaking point, right? That reactive abuse, it isn't clear until we, the victims, reach our breaking point. If the earlier descriptions of reactive abuse sound like a behavior pattern present in your relationship, consider the following tips to help break your cycle. Acknowledge the abuse. The first step in disengaging and breaking the cycle of abuse is to acknowledge the problems in the relationship. I'll bring this back up for you to see. Right here's some signs that you're in an abusive relationship, right? And healthy relationships are based on respect, trust, and equality, while abusive partners tend to find ways to control their partner. If they're hurtful, insulting, or demeaning in their communication to you, that's abuse. Whenever you try and say, hey, you did this to hurt me, and they say, well, I did it because of this, that's blame shifting. When they accuse you of doing something that didn't happen, that's gaslighting. And 99% of the time, then, in my experience with my wife, they are guilty of doing that. And it is projection. They're projecting their guilt on you by gaslighting you and trying to get you to admit to something that you didn't do. Isolation. Do they ever stonewall you or give you the silent treatment until you apologize to them? Or do they withhold sex from you if you're a married person? That is abuse. Inconsistent behavior. Do you have great days where things are just happy-go-lucky, no problems, and then all of a sudden the next day it just goes right back to that cycle of abuse? That's because this person is emotionally unstable. They will have good days, they will have bad days, but they will have much more bad days than they will have good days, no matter how much good that you pour into them. Manipulation. We all know that this is the number one tactic of a narcissist. They will manipulate for control in any way, shape, or form that they can. If they know how to press your buttons, they'll try and do that. If they know, how to make you react out of character, and like I said, push your buttons, react to the character, get you to do something that you normally wouldn't do, especially if they want to find proof or show other people that you're the crazy one, they'll do that. They'll manipulate you. They'll manipulate other people into thinking that as well. And lastly here, physical violence. My wife has thrown herself on top of me, and then whenever I pushed her off, you abused me, oh, I can't believe it. I literally played the victim after she jumped on top of me. If you put yourself in another person's physical space, you are the instigator, you are the aggressor. No matter what that person does at that point, if they punch you in the face and knock your teeth out, they're acting in self-defense. Okay? So talk to someone you trust. Maybe it's a family member, a friend, a teacher, or a coworker, someone that you trust, and let them help you process your feelings and share what's really going on in your relationship. Regardless of whether you stepped away from an abusive relationship or an event, or if you reacted in self-defense, talking to a friend offers you a different perspective on the situation. You're not just asking yourself, hey, what really happened? Because the narcissist is obviously at this point, if you're at your breaking point, they've led you to believe that you are the problem. So you are going to dwell on that, and it's going to just ruminate inside your mind, and you are eventually going to think that you are the problem, and they've won. And then the cycle of abuse is going to continue. I promise you that is what happened to me, and it will happen to you if you let it. So lean on your support system. If you're not ready to talk about the abuse, you can still prioritize spending time with people who treat you with respect. Do not give time or any energy to a person who does not respect you, who doesn't reciprocate the trust, the love, and the respect that you give them. If they aren't willing to reciprocate what you're pouring into them, then don't give them that. They're not worth your time. Find somebody who is. Abuse can be isolating, so staying in touch with family and friends is essential for emotional support. Do not let them isolate you, because they will. Once you separate from them. So here, let me go back over to me. So what happened to me is abuse, reactive abuse, and then all of a sudden I start reacting. She starts to get evidence, has pictures of bruises and everything else. It tells all my family and friends that I'm crazy and I treat her like crap. She starts to try and alienate me from my family and my friends. That way I'm isolated. She goes on Facebook and posts, on Facebook even, to all the world how I'm abusive, and she's tried to talk to the police, and the police won't help her. She tagged the police in the post and called them pieces of crap for not doing their job. And I'm telling you, they will go to every length. They will stop at nothing to make sure that you look like the bad guy. I've experienced it to no end. So just remember, you are worth every bit of respect and love, and don't let somebody ever treat you otherwise, or make you think otherwise. Okay. Let's finish this up here. Remember your worth and sense of self. Sorry, my voice is going here. Suffering from abuse can take a toll on your mental health and self-esteem. When someone you care about doesn't show you respect, it can make you feel unworthy or unlovable, especially if you're married to that person. They said that they would be with you for life, through all bad things, through sick and health, through rich or poor, whatever. They chose you for life is what they said. In order to help you process the pain and regain your sense of self, find ways to prioritize your emotions. For example, try grounding techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or journaling. And for me, meditation, that's prayer. Pray to God. The more time that you pray to God, I promise you, the more that you are going to have clarity and peace and joy, because you'll realize that nobody can take that from you. Joy and peace are from the Lord, okay? And if you don't have joy and peace in the Lord, then you won't have joy and peace in your relationships. Plain and simple. Try therapy. Talk therapy, such as cognitive behavior therapy, CBT, can help people better understand their thoughts and feelings. CBT also teaches coping skills to deal with stress, distorted thoughts, and difficult abuse-related emotions. So make sure, if you need to, try different types of therapy out there. Consult a helpline. If you need immediate support, consider one of the following helplines. There's the National Domestic Violence hotline here, 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233. Or you can text the word START, that's START, to 88788. Again, text START, START, to 88788. There's also the Love is Respect hotline or helpline here. It's 1-866-331-9474. Or you can text LOVE IS, that's LOVEIS, to the number 22522. You can visit the No More directory to find additional resources near you. So, mental health consequences of prolonged abuse, and this is what I really wanted to get into. We've talked about the abuser and everything. Let's talk about us, right? If you've ever been on the receiving end of abuse or witnessed a loved one in an abusive relationship, you know that it can significantly affect not just mental, but also physical health. Being in a relationship with an abusive person, essentially, those patterns can cause long-term emotional trauma, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, as well as short-term symptoms like fear, shame, anxiety, confusion, hopelessness, powerlessness, and guilt. And I've definitely experienced all of that whenever I act out of character and when I'm, being abused and my reactive abuse, my self-defense. Let's stop saying reactive abuse. Let's call it self-defense. And my self-defense, man, oh my gosh, I've reacted in ways that I never, ever dreamed I would ever act, especially towards a woman. I mean, I never dreamed I'd act that way towards a man, let alone a woman, let alone my wife. But you don't have control over yourself at this point because it literally causes brain damage, This video is pretty long, so I'll do a different one, but we'll get into what actually happens to your brain whenever you suffer long-term narcissistic abuse. It causes the hippocampus of your brain to shrink, and the amygdala takes over. And the amygdala is the reptilian part of our brain. It deals with like emotions and how we respond to threats. I mean, it keeps us safe and protects us whenever our lives are in danger. I promise, watch this video whenever I make it. You'll understand, and you'll be like, man, I know now what I'm going through. I know now what I felt. Because I promise you, for the longest time, 6 months or better, for a year, maybe 2 years, I don't even know now because my brain's just, it was fried for a while. I did not understand what was happening to me. I was trying to love my wife, trying to encourage her to go to church with me. I played guitar and led worship at a church. Up until she sent the pastor of the church all these, pictures of bruises on her, and then said I was a wife beater. And it just, it really, the devil will work in your life. If you're like, rising up and getting closer to God, the devil will attack you. And man, did he ever in that point in my life. Not only did I lose my wife, I lost my church, essentially. I lost being able to get up on stage and help lead people in worship. I really hate to sing in front of people, to be honest. You'll only see me singing worship songs here because I love to praise Jesus. And I don't care who hears me sing and praise Jesus. But you probably won't ever hear me sing a secular song. Because I just, I don't do this for myself. I do it to praise God for what he is and what he's done for me. Okay? And I encourage you to do the same. If you've liked this video, please, if you haven't already, do like the video, repost it, follow me for more content like this, and let me know in the comments below, what you've experienced and how, you got through that, and if you need help, let me know, send me a message. I'd be glad to help you out if I can. Okay. But just know help is available, and there are people out there who are going through the same things that you've been through. There are those of us who are now on a healing journey. We're here to tell you it gets better. There is hope. There is a light, and you don't have to do this alone. Okay. So, all right, stay safe out there. God bless you all.